All those people that live in the green area, stick your hand up. Okay. I'd just like to say that from my perspective, you've got oil underneath your backyard, and lots of it. And that green area represents the Weald Basin, which is about 1,260 square kilometres. In fact, the Weald Basin as a whole actually is about 1,500 to 1,800 square kilometres.
Criticised is probably too strong a word, but you have come in for a bit of flack over the years in terms of how much you've played this up, but it seems as though you could have been right here. The oil explorer Angus Energy's given investors an update this morning on their Brockham field. They've said results from recent drilling have revealed the characteristics of Brockham to be very similar and in some respects superior to those of the so-called Gatwick Gusher.
You know, these deposits extend over 1,200 square miles or more of the Weald, so if we can establish that we can put a commercial development together, then clearly, you know, you can see incremental step outs over quite a large area.
Widening this out, there's an area south of Gatwick Airport called the Weald Basin, which also goes down to Kent and goes down to the coast. Now, the suspicion is that there's a lot of this Kimmeridge limestone there, oil-bearing Kimmeridge limestone there. So, you know, it could be transformational for UK oil and gas. And the key thing here is Angus are actually going to put this on production. They have a license to produce. They need a few sign-offs from the Oil and Gas Authority, but they can put this onto production. Now, this will be the first time that the Kimmeridge has been put onto production, and it should come on at the rates. It's not 1,500 barrels. It could be more, it could be less, but it's going to be around about that area. Now, that's kind of unprecedented for UK onshore.
This is the first of at least 3 wells that I know of which is going to probe this Kimmeridge, this exciting Kimmeridge play. You've got at least 2 more wells going down this year. UK Oil and Gas, as you mentioned, the Broadford Bridge well, I think possibly Holmwood. I don't know which one will come first. But all of these wells are going to be looking at very, very similar plays. Everybody knows what they're going for at the moment. And Brockham's very important because I think we're getting confirmation of the play. 2 more wells and you've got something very, very interesting on your hands. And I think that the operators will learn how to manage the play. We'll certainly start to get production data when Brockham, let's assume Brockham comes on first. You've got a major play opening up there.
This type of oil deposit very much depends on being able to drill your wells almost back to back, so it becomes very much like an industrialized process.
But of course, there's that whole conversation about, you know, sort of will these oil fields really be allowed to go ahead and to produce at the rates that we're talking about, or, you know, sort of will the county council, will other people try, will, you know, sort of nearby residents try and block them and cut them off?
This well could flow at, you know, significant rates easily in the kind of parameters that we saw with the Horse Hill well tests.
What we've found in the Brockham well is not only are those limestones there and highly fractured by Mother Nature, but we've also found that the clays that surround those limestones are also naturally fractured. So the amount of net pay from the Brockham well can literally go from sort of 200 feet a la Horse Hill to something like anything from 500 to 600 feet, which is really quite significant.
The key thing here is that Angus are going to put this in production, barring a few sign-offs here and there from the Oil and Gas Authority. They have the licence to produce, so that's significant.
It is highly significant. It was one of the major selling points around the IPO time and why I think it was a success. The Brockham well site is a production site. They have the permits to drill, I think, up to 6 wells of this nature. And obviously the final OGA permits are required for final production, but there's very little impediments to stop them getting this well online and producing it from the existing facilities.
Has anything been said about what kind of rates we could expect when they do come into production?
Well, that's an inference, I think, from the statement. And interestingly, they quote 1,500 barrels a day as a kind of indicative for Horse Hill. Now, Horse Hill didn't quite flow at that rate, so that's interesting. I think initial flow rates, I think one mustn't get too misled into thinking that that could be a sustained flow rate. What I would imagine, and this is a personal opinion, is that they would establish possibly a lower flow rate, which could be sustained for a greater period to kind of get an idea of decline rates, which we don't know at the moment. I don't have a good handle on what these wells will perform over the longer term, over months and years. So yes, I think they could easily do those kind of rates, over 1,000 barrels a day. But possibly, if you're operating up to a multiple well program, you might choke them back, reduce the decline rates, and keep sustained production on for months and years.
Generally speaking, these types of wells do decline, i.e., the flow that you at the start of the year when you put the well on, compared to the flow at the end of that year, can decline by 60 or 70% or so. So generally you have to drill a lot of wells close to each other so you can maintain a certain level of production.
It could start as early as late spring or early summer. That's the sort of timeline. Now, they've got to get sign off from the Oil and Gas Authority, and I also believe that they're speaking to the County Council, but that's more about the siting of porta cabins on the site and bringing in new equipment and what have you. I mean, the wider discussion that will be had. This is smack bang in the stockbroker belt, where there are a lot of expensive houses, a lot of people who commute into London with a great deal of money, and quite rightly, these people will be saying, "We don't want oil in our backyard." The counterbalance in that argument is that the oil experts now can tell you that these sort of drilling pads are no bigger than a tennis court, and they can be cordoned off, and these oil wells can go and reach out like spider-like tentacles out to sort of a couple of kilometres east, west, north, and obviously downwards.
It all really started with Balcombe, which was quite controversial because the Swampies all said it was fracking and it wasn't. Then you had Horse Hill, which is sort of some 10 miles to the north. Now you've got 5-6 miles further north again, you've got the Brockham field, which has now picked up the Kimmeridge limestones. Horse Hill only tested 2 of the 3/4 limestones. It now begs the question, is if there's circa 200 metres of highly fractured, very oil-rich clays in the Kimmeridge clays at Brockham, what does that do for the potential of Horse Hill, and how much can that add to the potential oil production of that whole area around Gatwick Airport? It's actually really exciting.